morning, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Thank you for attending today's press conference. The members of the head table are Minister of Communities, Ronald Bolton, Minister within the Ministry of Communities, Keith Scott, Deputy Permanent Secretary, Mr. Bina Moore, Advisors to the Minister, Mr. Derek Colasar, Mr. Mark Crawford, and Mr. Remington Nelson. As you're aware, today, Minister Bolton will be announcing the date for local government elections, hence this press conference. I will now hand over to him.
Thank you, Chairperson, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your presence and participating in today's activity, which I believe is quite an important one. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an important time in our history. Your government has recently declared that Guyanese will have the opportunity to democratically elect councillors to manage towns and neighborhoods. Elections are important because they are a democratic constitutional right. They are essential because the entire local government system is currently rotten and must be rehabilitated and made fully functional. Democratic renewal of local government organs is long overdue. Local government is about handing decision-making power to the people to enable them to efficiently and effectively manage their communities. With these facts in mind, I am pleased to inform you that local government elections will be conducted on March 18, 2016. A functioning local government system is a fundamental aspect of democratic governance. It is important because it deals with people's lives in their communities. Strong local government is at the heart of national development because who wields decision-making power at the municipal and neighborhood levels directly determine and decide where and how your tax dollars will be used to develop individual communities and ultimately the nation. Development at every level depends on a strong system of good, democratic, effective, and efficient local governance. Article 12 of the Constitution states, and I quote, "Local government by freely elected representatives of the people is an integral part of the democratic organization of the state." End of quote. As a democratic administration committed to the rule of law, your government, therefore, is obligated and committed to holding local government elections. Local governments are mandated by law to provide many essential services, such as improving living conditions, creating jobs in the various local areas, maintaining roads, bridges, and other important infrastructure, garbage collection, cleaning of drains, promoting a healthy environment, and encouraging citizen involvement in their communities. As Guyanese who have been living without a functioning local government system, we can all attest to the necessity of restoring and repairing the dysfunctional system which currently exists. Since we have experienced the results of the collapse of local government systems. Article 74 of the Constitution says, and I quote, "It shall be the primary duty of local democratic organs to ensure, in accordance with law, the efficient management and development of their areas and provide leadership by example." End of quote. Article 75 states, "Parliament shall provide that local democratic organs shall be autonomous." The administration is committed to giving effect to all laws, including those articles of our Constitution. Your government commits itself to empowering local democratic organs to carry out their mandate as stated in Articles 74 and 75 by replacing the heavy fist of central government interference with the open hand of positive, helpful intervention to assist local bodies to do their work effectively. In other words, the relationship between central and local government must and will be altered and corrected in accordance with constitutional provisions. Government at the grassroots level, local government, was embedded in Guyana's system of political administration on Tuesday, 5th August 1980, when the Local Democratic Organs Bill was passed in the National Assembly. On that historic day, then Vice President, the late Hugh Desmond Hoyt, said, and I quote, "The purpose of the current bill is to revolutionize the local government system," end of quote. He further said, "The new constitution identifies the local government system as the foundation of the democratic organization of the state and to enable the massive involvement of the people in the task of managing and developing their communities in which they live," end of quote. This system of grassroots democracy was, therefore, bequeathed to us since 1980, but was, unfortunately, never properly implemented as it was intended to be. Today, we have the opportunity to transform Guyana by following the letter and spirit of the Constitution. The legislation governing local government organs was further strengthened following the local government reform process initiated in the aftermath of the 1997 general elections and the ensuing menu of measures accompanying the Hurdmanston Accord of January 1998. The 5 new pieces of legislation which arose out of that process are Act number 26 of 2009, namely the Local Authorities Elections Amendment Act 2009, Act number 15 of 2013, the Municipal and District Councils Amendment Act 2013, Act number 16 of 2013, Fiscal Transfers Act 2013, Act number 18 of 2013, Local Government Commission Act 2013, and finally, Act number 5 of 2015, Local Government Amendment Act 2015. Ladies and gentlemen, when we elect new local leaders on March 18, 2016, we will be making a break with the ways of the past. The new leaders will not just replace the old ones. The new, democratically elected officials will be empowered according to law, and they will be expected to perform their decision-making roles according to law. They will not be subject to domination and control by central government. The newly elected local leaders will have power to make decisions that affect citizens living within the respective municipalities and neighborhood democratic councils. It is therefore important that each eligible voter casts a ballot according to his or her conscience. If you do not vote, other people will choose local government officials without your input. I today invite everyone to ponder on these important matters which will determine Guyana's direction of development for the next 3 years. Inform yourselves of what each candidate has to offer. Listen to all of them. Then cast your ballot based on the issues. Let us put the past behind us and move forward to a better life for all residents within our respective communities. I thank you.
Rapid Prime News. Sir, I don't want to assume, but your announcement today is premised on GCOM's readiness for local government elections. Critical to the holding of that elections is an education awareness program. We're dealing with 5 new pieces of legislation and different systems in place. What assurances have you been given by the elections body that citizens would be aware of everything in place for the holding of local government elections?
GCOM, thank you very much, Nazima. GCOM currently has a work plan that provides for a very aggressive, the rollout of a very aggressive and comprehensive voter education program and process, the funding of which has already been guaranteed and is in place. It is true that you've referred to the new pieces of legislation, but perhaps I can remind all of us, and by extension the public, that the main new feature or novel feature of these elections has to do with the element of constituency representation. The legislation for which was enacted in 2009 in the 9th Parliament, which created constituencies within each of the local democratic organs. And it may be remembered as well that local government elections were actually scheduled to be held in 2010, but that was overtaken by general elections which were held in 2011. But it is the responsibility for voter education and for the mechanics of that new feature, if you will, in these elections. It's the principal responsibility, as you have outlined, is of GCOM, and they do have a work plan that provides for a very aggressive and intensive voter and civic education campaign.
Have they given you a timeline as to when it will start? Because I've seen nothing.
I believe that the rollout of that it's very imminent. So it's likely to start within a matter of weeks.
Financial resources. The government has passed the budget just after elections this year. Has GCOM indicated if they need more money, or would we be getting more money from the government's January budget?
There is sufficient financial resources have been provided for the holding of these elections as they have been announced. So there is absolutely no danger that that there will not be adequate and sufficient funding for all of the activities that have been identified and are outlined in GCOM's work plan, which GCOM would more properly on interrogation provide information about. But on the question of the cost of these elections, allow me to say, please, that these elections are expensive. They're not going to come cheap. It may actually even cost more than our general and regional elections. However, the administration is absolutely convinced that the investment in these elections are essential because it arises out of our unmistakable commitment as to the importance of the role of local government and local democracy, and if you will, of local democracy and human development. These two factors, we are convinced, they are intertwined, they are inseparable. So we cannot move forward as far as human development is concerned unless we have an effective and fully functioning system of local government and practice of local democracy. So it is an investment that is absolutely critical and necessary.
Can you give us some examples as why it would cost more? Is it because of the constituency?
Yes, if we were to think about it, for general and regional elections, we are actually dealing with 10 ballot papers because they're unique to each region. Given the feature of constituency representation and the fact that there are 585 constituencies within the 71 organs, and it means then that there will be 585 unique ballot papers for each of those constituencies. So the logistics relating to the conduct and management of these elections are more elaborate than they are for general and regional elections.
Sir, did you feel pressure or the government feel pressure to announce a date for local government elections in keeping with what you had set out to do prior to general elections and other commitments? The opposition seemed to have been saying hold local government elections, hold local government elections. Did you feel pressure to announce this date?
I'm not so sure that I believe your question is probably with some amount of tongue-in-cheek. In fact, it was the opposition who were reluctant and resistant to hold local government elections when they had the opportunity and when they were the administration. In fact, it may be recalled that it was the PPP who, prior to the 2011 elections, had made a solemn pledge and promise that if re-elected, that they would hold local government elections within 1 year. As we all know, throughout the life of the 10 Parliament, they refused to honor that commitment that they gave to the electorate. When the local government elections bill was brought before, elections amendment bill was brought to the National Assembly in February of 2014, which provided for the holding of local government elections in accordance with that bill by the 1st of December 2014. It was the APNU that brought an amendment to that bill requiring that those elections be held by the 1st of August 2014, an amendment that was successful given the fact that the combined opposition had a majority in the National Assembly. It will be recalled that President Ramotar did not assent to that bill, and following the expiration of the 1st of August deadline, it was the then leader of the opposition, Brigadier David Granger, who in September wrote to President Ramotar requesting or possibly demanding that he names a date for the holding of local government elections, which was met with an unsuccessful response. Subsequent to that, the then leader of the opposition, Brigadier David Granger, made an address to the nation in September announcing the necessity and the importance of having local government elections, as well as announcing imminent picketing and weekly protest activities, which were subsequently conducted in front of the then Office of the President during 2014 and earlier in 2015. So the PPP, or the former administration, were the ones who showed a marked reluctance for the holding of these local government elections. It was the APNU, when in opposition, who were demanding that these elections be held, arising out of our clear commitment as to the importance of the democratic renewal of our local councils, arising out of our bemoaning the fact that for 18 years, our citizens were denied the opportunity to choose local leaders to manage and develop their respective areas. So I don't think it is accurate for you to say that this administration was pressured. In fact, it was a clear desire of this administration that we were committed to the early holding of these elections. And you may be aware as well that there was one further piece of legislation that was required, which was passed in the National Assembly recently, which was necessitated out of the fact that the existing legislation had only empowered GCOM to create a preliminary list of electors out of the 1992 OLE. And this again serves as a reminder that the last local government elections were held 2 decades ago in 1994. And it was the case that the legislation was never updated to allow GCOM to create preliminary voters lists out of the National Register of Registrants. And it was that legislation that was passed recently. And one of the effects that it had is that given the logistics associated with the constituency element that I have alluded to a short while ago, where the management of the elections are duly taken into account, these 585 constituencies required the period between the application for symbols as well as the nomination day or the submission of lists of candidates. That period was increased from 21 days under the previous legislation to now 71 days. So this has impacted on the fact that the elections are being held a little later than the administration would have preferred it to be held.
Any other questions?
Minister, Andrew Wick, Safety with Attendance. Minister, have you been advised by GCOM what method of voting that is done for these elections? Will it be electronic? Will it be ballot paper? Have you been advised about that?
No. To the best of my knowledge, I do not believe that GCOM are currently contemplating any form of electronic balloting for these local government elections. It may be a consideration for future elections, but I do not believe that that discussion or determination is currently on the table. But GCOM would more properly be able to pronounce on that.
Are there any more questions relating to this, the opening statement? Any other question outside of it?
If there's not, allow me please, members of the media, to make an additional comment, if you will. The conditions, well, let me say this, the Ministry of Communities has an obligation and a responsibility for the conditions in our communities. And it is no secret to all of us that there's a crisis within our communities. However, that obligation and that responsibility will be exercised, or it will be discharged not directly by this ministry, because no one ministry has the capacity to manage our entire country. But that obligation and responsibility will be discharged via, or in keeping with our constitutional provisions, and via local councils, which is what our Constitution provides for. So, as has been elaborated time and time again, it is the dysfunctionality, the disrepair, the collapse of these organs that allows for the inability to provide for the effective management and maintenance of our communities. So this restoration and this repair of this collapsed system, that repair process will have to be, can only begin via the democratic renewal when new councils are elected, which will result in new blood, new energy, new enthusiasm via a democratic process as part of this repair system that will enable and allow the central government via the Ministry of Communities to discharge its obligation and responsibility to provide care and attention to all of our communities. So it is going to be a responsibility of duly and democratically elected councils. And this is what the local government elections represents, the first stage in that process. Beyond that, of course, the ministry's involvement will allow for institutional strengthening and the building of capacity within these councils when they are created. And then finally, there's a third and perhaps the most important component of this repair and restoration, which has to do with financing, the question of where these councils will get their revenue and their financing from to enable them, to equip them to be able to effectively and efficiently discharge their responsibility to be able to properly manage and develop their respective areas. And it is those second and third activities or components that the ministry's responsibility resides in, and that it is the focus and preoccupation of the ministry at this time, that once those councils come into being following the elections of May 18th, that it's the focus and attention of the ministry. March 18th, sorry.
And any questions for Minister Scott relating to the housing sector, or any other questions on local government and regional development? If there are no questions, thank you so much for coming. Safe journey.
Oh, did you want outside of the... No, you wanted to invite any questions outside of the statement? Oh, okay. All right, okay.